Let me just remind everyone what he said in the tweets, which is oil prices getting too high. OPEC, please relax and take it easy. The world cannot take a price hike. Fragile. Discuss.
A little bit late. As you pointed out, a 30% rally. Now, what's driving that rally has been a really aggressive action on OPEC's part. We like to call it shock and awe strategy, which is cut real deep, real sharply, rebalance the market quickly, and get back to a market share strategy before the shale guys take away their market share. Because that was the mistake they made back in 16 and 17. It was a long, drawn cut that extended over a year or so. And in that time period, you ended up with 700,000 barrels per day of extra shale output. This time, drop the production, get out of there, and get back to market share strategy. And as a result, you look at Trump's tweet. Yeah, he's right that the market's gained momentum, but most of that cut's already in the market. Okay, but what do do the Saudis want to keep the president on side? And is that really more about foreign policy than actually looking at the price of oil?
6 months ago, I would have said yes. Given the difficulties that were encountered over the last part of, with what happened with the Iranian sanctions, I'd say there's less of a foreign policy tilt to it than what there was previously.
Jeff Currie, give us an update on demand. I mean, we're completely focused in the equity markets on December, January, February. We've got EU disinflation, on and on. Where are we on global oil demand? Does it tell you anything?
Rock solid. And, the view that we've taken is that oil demand, commodity demand more generally has just been steady as she goes, while we've had a significant fluctuation in sentiment over that time period. Give you the numbers behind it. You look at Chinese demand, it was up 5%, at least the imports in January. Even here in Europe, where you have a lot of concerns about the macro backdrop, French demand, which is road fuel use, not weather, was up 7%. Italian demand was up 4%. Spanish demand up 3%. So I'm not seeing the evidence from a micro commodity perspective of this economic slowdown.
What's the micro elasticity? I mean, what's the responsiveness to this increased demand? Does oil give a lift?
Part of the lift that we saw going into last week that elicited Trump's tweet was in response to the relatively tight fundamentals. Because you not only have tight supply fundamentals given the shock and awe strategy out of OPEC, but you also have tight fundamentals from a demand perspective.
What do you do with Venezuela? So this could be a major oil producer, but actually it doesn't look like this will come anytime soon.
No, it's going to be years off. You look at Colombia. When Colombia saw a regime change, made investment in its oil sector, bare minimum 2 years. And you would argue that the damage to the Venezuelan oil sector is much greater, so 2+ years you're probably talking before you see big increases. We're not there yet. There's a lot more in terms of thinking about how do we get to the point of a regime change. Yeah. So I think you've got more downside risk to production near term. Right now we're down about 100,000 a day. Yeah. We think it could go to 200 to 300.
But Jeff, overall, what exactly does OPEC now have to think? Is it, I incur the wrath of the president or I deal with an oil slump, or is it about demand? We kind of charted the tweets of the president and the impact it's had on the price of oil. Does it just boil down to do you want to pick a fight with the president?
Well, I think that their stated goal was that this cut was going to last 6 months until June, and given how severe the curtailments were in the most recent time period and likely to be for March, partially due to a hiccup in one of the fields, the rebalance of the market could be done by April, and they'll be out of this raising production back to a market share strategy. And are we going to see tweets from the president in the second half of next year, prices too low, destroying the U.S. oil sector? So, it's a finely balanced market. We think there's upside risk now, but when we get to the second half of next year, you got all those big pipes coming online in the U.S., which starts to create downside risk to the market.